What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode of Sci-Fi Wednesdays and our Lando Calrissian Millennium Falcon. Today, guys, we're going to be moving forward here on this build, and I want to go ahead and focus on a couple of things. I want to see if I can't get the base looking a little bit better, and I want to go ahead and weather down the Falcon to make it look a little dirtier, but I don't want to go overboard with that because, like we've mentioned before, the Lando Calrissian version of the Falcon is pretty clean, or the Han Solo version is pretty dirty. So we're going to go ahead and start off here first with the base, and I want to add in some 3D details. I'm going to go ahead and punch out some 5mm, 6mm, maybe even some 4 or 3mm circles right out of foam, and then I'm going to go ahead and strategically place them around to look like buttons. Now I've actually got a couple different sets. This one here is more of an industrial punch, but it will work beautifully on these type of parts. Then all I have to do will come back a little bit later after I prime and all that, and we can paint them up different colors. We can do red, blue, white, gray, any of those colors will work just fine. I don't know exactly how I want everything set up just yet, so we're not going to glue anything down until I kind of figure out what I'm going for. So we'll place buttons here and there just to kind of give it a really nice vibe. And once I get everything kind of set up where I want it to go ahead and go, then I can use some glue and glue everything down. Now, speaking of glue, I'm going to be using some contact cement. It's a kind of an interesting type of adhesive. What you do is you take two pieces and you put contact cement on both of those faces that are going to eventually come together. Then you let it sit for about 15 minutes. It'll tack up, kind of dry out a little bit. And then once you place them together, they are supposed to instantly bond. Now I thought I'd try a little bit of a test piece right here with some foam just to make sure that the contact cement doesn't destroy my foam pieces. And it looks like so far pretty good. It has actually formed a very nice bond. I know I've messed around with contact cement before just for the heck of it, and contact cement can actually eat your material. Like for example, that pink foam, you can't use contact cement on that at all. It will completely eat it away. This looks like, yeah, it's working pretty decently. So I think we are ready to go ahead and move forward here. We're going to go ahead and glue all of our foam bases down onto the wooden box. Then we'll go ahead and punch out some more detail. We'll apply everything with our contact cement, just kind of play around with some fittings and get those switches drilled out and have some fun, guys. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what we can do. Let's get started. All right, everybody, so we are back, and this is how the base looks right now. As you can see, it's unpainted, unprimed, but you can kind of get an idea. I'm going to have a couple of areas that are going to be painted, some areas that are going to be raised off of the basic flat deck here, some switches and some ports and whatnot, and we're just going to kind of play around with it and figure out what looks cool, and then we'll just add in some extra greeblies here and there to give it a little bit of life. As you can see, we do have our hard drive motor in the corner. We have this switch plate built up. I thought about adding in maybe something circular up here on the upper right-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and probably shy away from that. Instead, I have some buttons I want to go ahead and push down there, and if I like those, I'll glue them in place, and I'll show you guys what I'm thinking. Okay, we are back, and I've done a little bit of some guessing work here off camera, and I think I have a pretty good idea where I want all of my buttons. Glued a couple of them down with some contact cement, and right now, I'm just going to use a little bit of our extra thin super glue to just tack down the very ends of each of these switches. So you can see I've got a couple of different diameters here. I've got some 4mm, some 3mm, I've got some larger 7 and 8mm I might use a bit later, but right now I just want to make sure that all of the edges are going to stay nice and glued down, because we have to come back in and do some priming and of course do some sanding. So now we're going to go ahead and move over, like I said, to priming. I think it's going to be pretty good to go ahead and do. And it's going to take a little bit of sanding as well, because this is an unfinished wooden box. And I want to go ahead and use some type of primer that I can go ahead and sand, and maybe we'll fill up any of the imperfections here. We'll have our hard drive motor down here in the corner. We've got our different switches. We've got some of these greeblies we'll go ahead and glue down eventually. Up here we'll have our switch for the engines. We'll have this little coaxial port, a little coupling right here. And then down here towards the middle, we'll have two switches that will work probably the fiber optics and maybe the cockpit, something like that. So I think this is looking pretty cool. Now for a primer, I thought I'd use some Stauner's Gray, but instead I think I'm going to go ahead and go with something I don't normally use, and that is a filler primer. This one right here by Rust-Oleum. I know it's a little bit of a different style. I have tested it out on foam, as you can see. No adverse effects whatsoever. So again, I like to go ahead and test everything before I use it, just to make sure I'm not going to destroy all my hard work. And it actually works perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this real quick off camera and paint it up outside. I don't have a camera out there, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick shot of primer. We'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, here we go. We are all nicely primed. I've got an assortment of sandpaper. Let's go ahead and do some sanding and do some painting, guys. Let's see what we can do. All right, everybody, so we are back, and I'm going to go ahead and now move over to the Falcon itself while the box just hangs off and dries off camera. I want to go ahead and do a little bit of weathering here on this particular model. This is the Lando Calrissian version, so it's not going to be nearly as dirty as a Han Solo version. Just a little bit of light weathering will really make it pop. Now, I thought about using just some basic panel line accent, but I don't really want to do that. That's great for small places, but I need something for the larger surfaces. I'm not using any sort of AK panel liners because that will literally eat the plastic to nothing. I don't want to do that. Then I was talking to my buddy Joe over at Mad Genius, and he actually suggested maybe trying something a bit more like a clay wash. So he gave me a couple he didn't want, and I'm going to be trying out this ultimate wash. It's clay based. We're going to be using this darker color right here. We'll be using this one, and we're just going to give it a shot. We're going to overcoat the entire ship itself. We're going to start off on small sections, cover everything with our clay wash. Then once it's dry, we'll use Q-tips and we'll come back over and we'll erase a lot of it off of the main surfaces of the panels. Hopefully we'll leave a little bit inside the recesses, give us some extra excitement, but for the most part, I'm hoping that this will work perfectly. So let's go ahead and jump in here to our last time lapse of the day. Let's go ahead and cover the entire Falcon with some of this ultimate clay wash. Then we'll go ahead and remove that with some Q-tips and some warm water. Then we'll add in some weathering powders, do a little bit of oil streaking with some oil paints, give it a nice satin coat, and see how it turns out. So onwards and upwards, guys. One more time lapse. Let's go ahead and finish off the episode. And we are back. As you can see, the Falcon is looking, I think, pretty cool. The Lando Falcon is not as dirty as the Han Solo Falcon, so clay wash worked perfectly for that. I did a little bit of panel shading as well, a little bit of our AIM weathering powder for that dust coming off of those 6 exhausts. I really like how that turned out. But I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today, though, because I don't want to really take the chance of damaging any of the surface. I've gone ahead and overcoated it with a satin coat just to make sure everything stays in place, but I don't want to push my luck. So we're going to let that sit off camera, let both the base and the Falcon dry. And the next episode we'll be back. We're going to finish off the base, get the Falcon mounted down to the base, wire everything up, and we will be good to go. So until our next episode, guys, thank you so much for watching. You guys know the drill. Go out there and get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here on episode number 11 for hopefully the finale for our Lando Calrissian version of the Millennium Falcon. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you soon.